Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Gaza's health ministry says the death toll from relentless Israeli airstrikes has risen to 56, including 14 children. At least 320 others have been wounded. Hamas has also confirmed the killing of several top commanders after Israel threatened to launch more attacks on the embattled Gaza Strip. But it said it's ready for escalation if Israel increases attacks. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa says a peaceful Afghanistan is in the best interest of the region, particularly Pakistan. He was speaking to the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Angela Agler, who called on him at the general headquarters in Rawalpindi. According to Pakistan's military media wing, the diplomat acknowledged Pakistan's efforts for regional peace and stability. It said the two sides pledged to boost bilateral relations. The World Health Organization says the Indian variant of COVID-19 has now been detected in 44 countries. India has logged its record of over 4,200 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 348,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 104 deaths and more than 2,800 cases since yesterday. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.3 million lives and infected over 159 million people. In Myanmar, security forces have arrested 39 people suspected of being behind explosions and arson attacks as daily protests against the military coup continue. The country has seen a growing wave of small blasts in cities and towns, some targeting government facilities since the military seized power in February. Over 780 people have been killed as the military struggles to impose order. UEFA has initiated disciplinary proceedings against Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus, the three clubs yet to renounce the aborted European Super League. The breakaway league was announced last month but later collapsed after the 6 Premier League clubs withdrew following protest from supporters. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Gaza's health ministry says the death toll from relentless Israeli strikes has risen to 56, including 14 children. At least 320 others have been wounded. Hamas has also confirmed the killing of several top commanders after Israel threatened to launch more attacks on the embattled Gaza Strip. But it said that it is ready for escalation if Israel increases attacks. The renewed attack follows Israeli forces' raids at Al-Aqsa Mosque after tensions mount over the possible eviction of Palestinians from their homes in occupied East Jerusalem. Russia has called on Israel to immediately stop all settlement activities in the Palestine territories, while China has urged all parties to exercise restraint to avoid further casualties. Meanwhile, thousands of people around the world, including the United Kingdom and the United States, took to the streets in solidarity with the Palestinians. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the international community must teach a deterrent lesson to Israel. In a phone call to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, Erdogan said international peacekeepers should be sent to the region to help safeguard Palestinians. He urged the UN Security Council to get involved in the issue and press Israel to halt its attacks on Palestinians. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has also expressed solidarity with the people of Palestine. On Tuesday, the OIC unanimously endorsed Pakistan's proposal for issuing a joint statement deploring Israeli actions in Palestine. At a meeting in New York, the Council also urged the international community to help end Israeli aggression. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa says a peaceful Afghanistan is in the best interest of the region, particularly Pakistan. He was speaking to the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Angela Agler, who called on him at the general headquarters in Rawalpindi. According to Pakistan's military media wing, the diplomat acknowledged Pakistan's efforts for regional peace and stability. It said the two sides pledged to boost bilateral relations. Afghan security forces have mounted an operation to recapture a Taliban-held district outside the capital, Kabul. This comes just before the start of a three-day ceasefire at midnight. The Defense Ministry said it carried out airstrikes at the start of the operation. Local officials warned that the fighting may reach Kabul in a few days if the district was not soon taken, as foreign troops withdraw. The fall of the district comes days after deadly bombings outside a school in Kabul killed 68 people, mostly schoolgirls. The United States says it has completed a 12% withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan. U.S. Central Command said an equivalent of 104 cargo planes of material has so far been removed ahead of the September deadline. In a statement, the CENTCOM said it turned over more than 1,800 pieces of equipment for destruction. It added the United States has officially handed over one facility to the Afghan National Army so far. However, it did not disclose the total number of American troops still based in Afghanistan. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the hidden figures are meant to protect U.S. troops from possible Taliban attacks. The United States has imposed sanctions on 7 Lebanese individuals for alleged links to Hezbollah and its banking arm. In a statement, U.S. Treasury Department said it imposed the curbs for illicit transfer of $500 million on behalf of the group. It named Ibrahim Ali Dahir the chief of Hezbollah's finance operation for allegedly using personal bank account to evade U.S. sanctions. The department said the 7 men have all participated in evasive shadow banking activity. It alleged that Hezbollah continues to abuse Lebanese financial sector. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Hezbollah poses a threat to the United States and its allies in the Middle East. In Myanmar, security forces have arrested 39 people suspected of being behind explosions and arson attacks as daily protests against the military coup continue. The country has seen a growing wave of small blasts in the city and towns, some targeting government facilities since the military seized power in February. A local newspaper reported that security forces had seized a large quantity of explosive material in a raid. It added that some suspects had been arrested for trying to join military training with a rebel group in Kayah State in the east. Myanmar's army has struggled to impose order since seizing power and detaining elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other party figures. Over 780 people have been killed and nearly 4,000 detained in the months-long crackdown. The World Health Organization says the Indian variant of COVID-19 has now been detected in 44 countries. India has logged its record of over 4,200 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 348,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.3 million lives and infected over 159 million people. More in this report.
As the world sees no major signs of pandemic getting under control, now India's variant, detected in dozens of countries, has become a new concern. A leading virologist in India said it is too early to say if infections had reached a peak. In Buxar district of Bihar state, after post-mortems, medics have sent DNA samples of 71 dead bodies for further investigations. The bodies washed ashore along the banks of the river Ganges and are expected to be of COVID-19 victims. Buxar's officials said the local villages claimed there were 100 such bodies, and they say many deaths are taking place in the rural areas that are not being reported. Medical oxygen has become a major concern with top hospitals in Delhi and other major cities, while clinics in far-flung villages are even shorter in supply.
No doctor is coming for the visit. Nobody is telling us what medicine to give to the patient. We have to go and arrange for the oxygen ourselves. If the oxygen cylinder needs to be changed, then also we have to go to them at least 10 times to get it done. The staff just keeps saying that the doctor will come after some time. I had to go outside and bring the cylinder to the patient's room myself.
In Bangladesh, thousands walked along highways to reach ferry terminal to return home for the Eid holidays following a ban on land transport. Meanwhile, in the US, about 263 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered so far. From Mexico to Argentina, thousands of Latin Americans are booking flights to the US to take advantage of one of the world's most successful vaccination campaigns as rollouts in their own countries sputter.
I think that it's very good that there is a chance to travel abroad and that you can get a vaccine, given that in Mexico there is no opportunity and it is too late. And you have it here in the US. The US government tells the people to get vaccinated and people don't get it. There's a lot of opportunity in regards to the vaccine over there.
The Canadian provinces of Alberta and Ontario announced to stop offering first doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine. Alberta said it was unclear when more shipments of the vaccine might arrive, while Ontario cited evidence that the risk of rare blood clots is somewhat higher than previously estimated. Brazil has also suspended AstraZeneca vaccination of pregnant women after the death of a woman.
In Pakistan, the registration for COVID-19 vaccinations for citizens aged 30 and above will begin from the 16th of May. Federal Minister for Planning and Development Asad Omar announced the decision in a tweet. Meanwhile, the country has recorded 104 deaths and over 2,800 cases of the virus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the nationwide death toll has reached 19,210. The caseload has crossed 867,000, of which over 771,000 have recovered. Meanwhile, the number of active cases stands above 76,000. Turkey and Saudi Arabia have agreed to maintain their newly initiated dialogue to address disagreements. The announcement came after Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu met with his Saudi counterpart in Mecca. In a press briefing, Cavusoglu said he held a very open and frank meeting with Prince Faisal bin Farhan. He said the two sides discussed measures needed to enhance cooperation on regional issues.
I want to thank my brother Prince Faisal, the foreign minister, for his invitation and hospitality. We had a very open and frank meeting and we discussed what we can do in terms of our bilateral relations. We addressed some problematic areas in our relationships and what we can do to solve them. We sincerely and openly discussed how to increase our cooperation.
The talks are aimed at overcoming a Riyadh-Ankara rift over the 2018 killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul. Now moving on, 2 protesters have been killed in clashes with security forces in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The protesters were commemorating a deadly raid of a demonstration camp 2 years ago outside the military's headquarters. Demonstrations sprung up across the capital and protesters blocked roads with bricks and tires. Medics say more than 20 people were injured as security forces fired live rounds and tear gas on the protesters. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok described the use of gunfire against the peaceful protesters as a crime that demands immediate justice. Condemning the killings, the military said it will fully cooperate with judicial authorities to investigate the incident. In Uganda, Yoweri Museveni has taken oath for the 6th term as president of the country amid tight security. Police surrounded the home of his main opposition rival, Bobi Wine, who slammed the inauguration as a sham. Museveni's victory in January was overshadowed by the bloodiest pre-election crackdown in years. The election campaign was marred by killing of dozens of protesters by the security forces. Opposition politician Wine, who came second to Museveni in the ballot, had declared the elections as rigged. The African Union has urged Chad's military to share power with a civilian president. The recommendation comes as the AU sent a mission to the country to develop strategies to revive the constitutional order. In a report, the mission said the AU Security Council may support the military transition as it stands. It added the bloc can pressure the military to transfer power to a civilian president alongside a military vice president. Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters marched peacefully through N'Djamena, calling for a calm during the transition process. A military council led by President Idris Deby's son, Mohamed, seized power in April after his father was killed while visiting a battlefront. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Iran's former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has registered to run again in the June 18th presidential election. In 2013, he had to step down due to term limit rules when incumbent President Hassan Rouhani won in a landslide. According to local media, Ahmadinejad said people must take part in Iran's decision-making process. He added that every citizen needs to prepare for the fundamental reforms. Candidates began signing up for the polls on Tuesday, with the rulers hoping for a high turnout. Registration will end on Saturday, after which entrants will be screened for their qualifications by a 12-member vetting body. The United States says the largest United Nations mission will monitor the Iraq elections in October this year. U.S. envoy says the United Nations team should be sizable enough to deter fraud, increase turnout, and rebuild trust in Iraq's democracy. In a Security Council meeting, U.S. envoy Linda Thomas-Greenfield said this team will be more advanced and better equipped. She said armed actors of violence against citizens, security forces, and journalists threatens to undermine the election. UN Special Representative for Iraq, Janine Harrison-Preshakant, said disinformation must be combated with facts. She also warned boycotting elections is risky business and comes potentially at high costs. Iraqis are due to go to the polls in October, more than 3 years after the previous national vote. The United States has agreed to remove Xiaomi Corporation from a blacklist that restricted Americans from investing in the company. The step reverses one of the last decisions of former President Donald Trump. A court filing said two parties will agree to resolve their ongoing litigation without further contest. A Xiaomi spokeswoman said the company is monitoring the latest developments closely. Earlier, the United States Department of Defense had planned the firm in a blacklist over alleged ties in China's military. Xiaomi responded by filing a lawsuit against the U.S. government, calling it unlawful. Britain says it will invest $31 million to help vulnerable countries build up their cyber defenses to counter online threats. Addressing an online security conference, Foreign Minister Dominic Raab called for an action to ensure a cyberspace that was open and peaceful. He added that some hostile states want to undermine democratic elections and turn the internet into a lawless space. Raab said Britain will collaborate with global agency Interpol to set up a new cyber operations hub in Africa. The hub will operate across 5 African countries to help fight cybercrime in the fast-growing economies. In Colombia, the death toll from nearly 2 weeks of anti-government protests has risen to 42. Bogota's human rights ombudsman says the victims include 41 civilians and 1 police officer. In a tweet, the ombudsman office called for all necessary measures to put an end to the violence. Protest leaders have called for a national strike today after a meeting with President Ivan Duque yielded no results. Violent demonstrations began on the 28th of April over a now-canceled tax plan. Protesters' demands have expanded to include a basic income, an end to police violence, and the withdrawal of a health reform. Meanwhile, UN Security Council adopted a resolution to extend its peace monitoring mission in Colombia. A young Pakistani mountaineer, Sirbaz Khan, has scaled the world's tallest peak, Mount Everest. With this achievement, Khan has now scaled 7 out of the world's 14 8,000ers. Khan achieved the milestone a day after the country's youngest hiker, Shahroz Kashif, reached the summit. Earlier, he became the first Pakistani to conquer Nepal's Annapurna Peak. The 34-year-old mountaineer also scaled Nanga Parbat in 2017, Pakistan's tallest peak K2 in 2018, and Broad Peak in 2019. In the UK, the first major indoor music event with a live audience was held in London in over a year. Some 4,000 people attended the Brit Awards on Tuesday night. The audience did not have to wear masks or practice social distancing to witness Britain's pop music honors. The ceremony featured live performances by artists such as Dua Lipa, Arlo Parks, and Sir Elton John. They dedicated their act to frontline health workers. Women won most of the awards at the ceremony, while Taylor Swift became the first woman to be awarded the Rare Global Icon Award. The ceremony was part of the British government's research to establish whether big events can be held in closed environments without social distancing.
Dreams come true, so, I'm living proof of that.
Over 200 million records worldwide. Her other accolades
in Brazil, an iconic Rio de Janeiro theater has reopened again after a year of closure. It is gradually welcoming musicians, dancers, and singers to offer virtual shows. This report has the details.
Theatre is one of the last sectors to come back in Brazil due to the challenges of social distancing for audiences amid the coronavirus pandemic. The artist's return to the theatre is limited and only for rehearsals and recording of shows. Nonetheless, musicians and dancers are just happy to return to the stage.
No matter how much your flame is lit, there comes a time when it diminishes, and we feel that a little bit. As a musician, I feel that. So, this virtual concert that we are preparing ignited that flame again. We need this to perform in the theater. The artist needs to be on the stage. We have the need.
Rio Theatre's ballet students and instructors never gave up hope of returning to the stage, and after months of waiting, their wishes have come true.
Mania de ter fé.
The Brazilians have a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith, and I transmit that to my students. We have faith that a better day will come. We have faith that everyone will be vaccinated. We have faith that everything will return to normal, and I carry that with me and pass it on my students. And hope can never die.
Rio's theatre inaugurated its concert season on 7th of May with the string ensemble performing works of Peter Warlock and Eric Elgar. In Brazil, thousands of entertainers were thrown out of work when the country's theatres closed last year.
It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations says the world economy will fare better this year than predictions after robust rebounds in China and the U.S. The UN revised up the global growth in a mid-year update of its World Economic Situation and Prospects 2021. It now predicts the world economy will grow by 5.4% in 2021 instead of January's 4.7% forecast. According to the update, the economy will return to positive territory as China and the U.S. will register impressive growth. It revised its 2021 growth forecast for China from 7.2 to 8.2%, and for the United States from 3.4 to 6.2%. The United Kingdom says the post-Brexit trade rules for Northern Ireland may not be suitable for long. In a statement, British negotiator and junior minister David Frost said the current protocols don't seem workable. He said solutions must be found rapidly in order to protect the 1998 Belfast Agreement between the United Kingdom and Ireland. London and Brussels had agreed to keep Northern Ireland within EU's trading sphere, avoiding a hard border in Ireland. However, trade barriers, including a customs border between the province and the rest of the United Kingdom, were introduced as part of the Brexit deal. The Wall Street stocks have declined after stronger than expected inflation data stoked fears of tighter monetary policy. The Labor Department's data showed the U.S. consumer prices increased by the most in nearly 12 years in April. The Nasdaq Composite Index traded nearly 2% lower, while the S&P 500 was also down over 1%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average traded about 1% low. Meanwhile, the oil prices surged after a drop in U.S. crude inventories reinforced OPEC's robust demand outlook. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.